Okay, well, since it is noon, I think we'll go ahead and get started. I think people are still joining, so we just have some brief introductions. My name is Lacey, and I'm the Administrative and Program Coordinator for the California Association of Museums. We're really grateful for all of our participants today and our speaker. I just have a couple of brief housekeeping to go over. First of all, the webinar is being recorded. Just a reminder that the recording will be shared out with registrants after the webinar. Live captioning is available at this link. I will continue to paste that link in the chat box as new people join, so everyone can access it. Our speaker today will be answering questions at the end of her presentation. So we do encourage you to send any questions that you have throughout using the Q&A feature by clicking that icon that should be at the bottom of your screen. And we'll do a monitored Q&A at the end. And finally, if you have any technical issues throughout the webinar, please feel free to message me in the chat box or send me an email at admin@calmuseums.org, and I will do my best to address the issue. And now I'm going to pass it off to Joaquin Ortiz, who is the co-chair of CAM's Strategic Action Committee, to introduce today's program. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. Nice to have you here today, and thank you for joining us for today's Lunch and Learn. I wanted to start out by doing a land acknowledgement. As we begin this event, we acknowledge and honor the original inhabitants of our various regions. A land acknowledgement is a critical step towards working with Native communities to secure meaningful partnership and inclusion in the stewardship and protection of their cultural resources and homelands. Our institutions were founded upon exclusions and erasures of indigenous peoples. We honor and are grateful for the land we occupy and recognize the ongoing damage of settler colonialism. Apologies there. Let's take a moment to honor these ancestral grounds that we are collectively gathered upon and support the resilience and strength that all indigenous people have shown worldwide. I am on the traditional territory of the Kumeyaay peoples. I encourage you to name and acknowledge the Native peoples where you are located in the chat box. Please send it to all panelists and attendees so that everyone can share that acknowledgement. So we ask you to please take a moment and go ahead and do that. Thank you for participating. That's vital for us and our inclusive policies and practices. I also would like to make reference to our sponsors and thank them for their support. The Lunch and Learn program is supported in part by Associated Foundations Incorporated in memory of Barry Herlihy. Live captioning is supported in part by the National Arts and Disability Center at the University of California, Los Angeles and Ability Central. CAM is supported in part by a grant from the California Arts Council, a statewide agency. And then finally, the CAM Fellowship Program is supported by the Getty Foundation. So just to give you a sense of these programs, each year CAM Fellows write case studies based on sessions that inspired them at our annual conference. These case studies are highlighted as published articles on our website and as part of this Lunch and Learn webinar series. Today I'm going to introduce our CAM 2020 Fellow Aida Lugo to do her Lunch and Learn. Before I get into that, just give me one sec to mention that if you have any young emerging professionals in your life who you think will qualify for this program, please let them know that our scholarship and fellowship programs are an opportunity for them. We know there may be some changes to the conference this year, but we still would like to see some heavy active participation so we can promote future leadership. Now to get on to Aida, our wonderful fellow who's speaking today. Aida N. Lugo is a teaching artist who works and lives in Pomona, California. Lugo received her bachelor's in fine arts at Otis College of Art and Design in Los Angeles, where she majored in community arts engagement and sculpture new genres. She was a recipient of the Getty Merrow undergraduate internship in 2013 and two-time Getty Scholar of the California Association of Museums Conference. Lugo works at the American Museum of Ceramic Art, facilitating art experiences for museum guests. She hopes to continue her education, obtaining a master's in fine art with a minor in museum education and curatorial practices. So I'm going to go ahead and pass this on to Aida. Thank you.
Hi, Joaquin. Thank you. Let me get to sharing my screen. Let's see. Okay, that looks awesome. Can y'all hear me?
Yes. Looks
Awesome, thank you so much.
great.
I'd like to welcome you all for joining us today. I look forward to sharing with you what I've been working on since the CAM conference. As Joaquin mentioned, I am Aida Lugo, a teaching artist with the American Museum of Ceramic Arts in my hometown of Pomona, California. This year's conference, titled Museums Leading in Anxious Times, was clearly such a relevant title and theme. I chose this topic because as an educator, I was super excited to see what the Museum of African Diaspora was doing with their program MoAD in the classroom. In leading at museum education in the time, they received the Superintendent's Award for Excellence in Museum Education. For this project, I collaborated with Dimitri Bronxton, the Director of Education at the Museum of African Diaspora. And I just want to get into sharing what museum programs can do to support the classroom experience during this sensitive time and also during the traditional school year. So to start off, I wanted to begin with a beautiful quote by Dimitri Bronxton, who said it best. We, as the larger museum education field, offer an experience that is different from the classroom experience. It's critical that museums don't try to replicate the classroom experience. We offer more experiential learning experiences. We invite students to think more critically and creative. These experiences are not something that can easily be done in a traditional classroom setting. So museum experiences complement what's happening in the classroom and offer students respite from the humdrum of structured lessons at classroom desks. More specifically, I'm going to get into talking about what different ways we can support the classroom experiences, right? One being partner up. We're partnering up with the state standards, school districts, institutions for financial support. We're partnering up with teachers. We're partnering up with artists such as myself. We're partnering up with students, right? What a museum program can do to support the classroom experience is integrate. We create lesson plans and curricula that are currently tied to standards teachers must meet in their classroom curriculum. This way, our offerings are easily integrated into the classroom, allowing for smooth transitions in learning. This is a best common practice across all museum education departments to ensure you stay relevant to what's happening in the education community in your area and beyond. Looking at standards, there are many rich opportunities for collaborations with outside institutions. For example, MoAD in the classroom can use the VAPA standards, the visual and performing arts, to teach exactly what students are expected to know at grade level in their visual arts lesson. They can also use history and social justice standards to talk about the African diaspora, weaving it into what students are already learning. We can allow learning to be more fun and memorable by adding these experiences into the normal school day. We're also partnering with school districts, becoming community partners for integrated learning. School districts need this collaboration. They have set up ways for museums and nonprofits to partner with district learning, so teachers know who approved vendors are and what field trips their students can really benefit from. And I have another wonderful quote from Dimitri, whose goal has remained to build one of the most, if not the absolute best, museum education programs centered on the art and artists of African descent. By keeping focused on that goal, the other areas eventually fall into place regarding partnerships and funding. The museum associations, the Institute of Museum and Library Science, the Smithsonian, these are other institutional or financial support for finding grants and funding, and other departments really taking notice in what's happening. Dimitri had mentioned that his department brings in more grant funding than any other department. We are also collaborating with teachers, offering professional development for educators in the arts. Teachers have expressed being overwhelmed by integrating the arts. Since huge cutbacks have taken arts out of schools, teachers have been struggling to fit it into the normal school day. By partnering up with schools, programs like MoAD in the Classroom, who are placing artists and residents at these schools. So that leads us to our next collaborator, right? Artists, museum educators. We're finding educators to implement these lessons, gainfully employing artists and non-conventional educators, visiting the museum, learning out in the real world, and making memorable experiences. We are bringing in specialists rather than adding more pressure to teachers to teach something they aren't always trained in, and allowing teaching artists like myself to participate in education in our field and not have to exactly conform to becoming traditional classroom teachers, which in turn illustrates to our students and our teachers that educators come in all shapes and sizes and disciplines. Lastly, and most importantly, I'd have to say, is we're partnering with our students. We're providing a service that impacts students' lives, building on their ability to create and share art. Students look forward to field trips, expressing their identity through art, and looking at positive role models who may not otherwise be seen as educators. Here we have an image of students lined up outside of the museum. Dimitri mentioned his schools being very low income. I would imagine this is the first time a lot of students are coming into the downtown San Francisco area. They may have working class parents who may not have time to take them out to these cultural sites. It's important for these students to visit the museum and know why they're visiting. By not having the learning stop there, but continuing it in the classroom to explore and expand on similar ideas. So from a field trip to the classroom, integrating lessons with Common Core so that we can learn to understand that learning happens everywhere. There are resources on MoAD's website that correspond with each exhibition. So whether before or after visiting the museum, students can do a lesson to dig deeper into their learning. We're expanding and exploring themes at the museum and back at school to help make those learning connections. These relationships matter and culturally inform students and teach art that they may not otherwise see in their history books. And let's not forget about the teachers, right? They need art too. We are not only a saving grace for students, but for teachers. Teachers need creative professional development too, to see how they can integrate the arts into their lessons or see how they can introduce or teach a lesson more creatively. Teachers are lifelong learners and can gather more tips for their teaching by having these professional development experiences with teaching artists who approach teaching differently. According to an evaluation led by Public Profit, classroom teachers in particular indicated strong knowledge gains after participating in the workshops. All teachers reported that they continually find better ways to lead classroom lessons after using art in these workshops. All participants, including the MoAD and the classroom instructors, agreed that they were comfortable using art to help students understand difficult topics. Let me find my place. After the workshops, more teachers agreed that they have used an art project to teach a classroom lesson in another content area after participating in the workshops. Great job, MoAD in the classroom. That's amazing. Here we see a student proudly displaying his collage. Prior to the pandemic, we were in the midst of working with 1,300 students on an ongoing basis in their classrooms and at the museum. We were halfway through this school's program, gearing up to have teaching artists move into their 2-month residency, focus on an extended art project with the students. While in the classroom, MoAD educators teach students about museum themes, current exhibitions, visual arts vocabulary. During the museum visits, students view current art exhibitions, learn how to view and talk about art, and participate in hands-on activities. It really sounds like a full encompassing program. Here's a lovely photo of a museum educator in the classroom with her group of students. According to Public Profits Evaluation, classroom teachers also lent their perspective on how their students benefited from participating in MoAD in the classroom, specifically when it came to visual thinking and new experiences. A strong majority of teachers reported that their students have opportunities to explore ideas and create their own artwork in the MoAD in the Classroom program. They also said that their students have the opportunity to learn about art because of MoAD in the Classroom. My students are given opportunities to explore ideas and create their own artwork. My students have the opportunity to learn about art, learned a new skill, are better at describing works of art using vocabulary, emphasizing line, color, texture, and space, and shape, can look at works of art and predict what might happen next using contextual clues to support their ideas. Additionally, the MoAD in the Classroom instructors reported that youth were able to relate to and talk about museum themes, as well as express feelings and name emotions. Here's a quote from a MoAD educator. I taught a class to create something new out of a handful of supplies. After the students were done, they did a gallery walk to reflect about their process, explain their decision-making, and express themselves and interact with each other as artists. By interacting with the supplies, they learned about the characteristics and learned how to manipulate it. In the end, everyone created something unique. Moreover, while all respondents said they value activities that take students out of their seats and help them make connections, and that they are prepared to navigate social issues around culture with students, all respondents also said they believe that art activities can increase children's interest in other academic areas, both before and after the workshops. Taken together, these findings indicate that those who participated in the workshop series are already highly committed to finding new ways to support students' educational experiences and are strong advocates of bringing arts education to the classroom to support the teaching of other content areas. With the COVID-19 pandemic, everything clearly has changed. MoAD is temporarily closed, like many of our museums and schools are. During the current shelter in place, and this is a quote by Dimitri, museums are beginning to offer more enrichment opportunities that classroom teachers are not able to provide to their students. We are struggling with access to all our students. The digital divide makes it difficult for our low-income students to have access to computers and the internet. We will continue thinking outside the box to offer as many free online learning opportunities as possible. We are also developing more content online that can be accessible to all students. This content will be modeled by our MoAD in the Classroom curriculum. Teachers have had to prioritize English language arts and math, so we don't anticipate getting online with most of our students before this school year is over. Instead, I am working with the teaching artists to develop online classes that they can offer to a broader group of students. We've also done docent-led art interpretive experiences. These all add to what teachers have the capacity to offer, and we become a partner to the classroom virtually, which again helps us continue our goal. Here's a lovely image of students sitting in front of a painting during an activity. Museum educators noted in their focus group that MoAD in the Classroom program gave youth a break from their regular routine and gave them the opportunity to experience something novel. For some youth, there was novelty in traveling across the bay to San Francisco. Here's a quote from a museum educator. We are opening up a whole new world for them at a young age and giving them joy, connecting with art, seeing art, and traveling, exposing them to a world outside of their own. Here is for public profits chart on the benefits of the MoAD in the classroom. The program evaluated itself with community partners, public profit, who led surveys and focus groups looking at the elements above. We have our classroom visits, our museum visits, and our 4 to 8 additional teaching art visits. Which led to support the mastery of artistic knowledge and skills, supporting the interpretation and expression of art, and making connections to the broader world and personal experiences. The outcomes being increased visual art vocabulary and understanding of art concepts, increased confidence in creating and interpreting visual art projects, increased ability to use art and make connections to their personal history, and new experiences, simply and important. In conclusion, museum education has something special to offer the traditional classroom experience. By offering online resources, teaching professional development, and teaching our youth in new creative ways can give a boost to education during this trying time and moving forward. I wanted to end with some testimonies of the teachers, MoAD educators, and students about how the program was effective for them. Before I go into that, I'll sum it up with public profits evaluation results. Program observations captured high quality practices being implemented consistently, particularly as staff provided a safe and supportive environment for youth. 100% of classroom teachers reported that MoAD in the classroom instructors really care about their students, and that their students are given opportunities to contribute their ideas to the group. 96% of classroom educators said that MoAD in the classroom instructors listen to what youth have to say and are aware of their classroom norms around safety. 96% of classroom teachers said that their students are given opportunities to explore ideas and create their own artwork, that because of MoAD in the classroom, their students have an opportunity to learn about art. And onto the gold of the presentation, let's see what our teachers and our students had to say about the program. My students enjoy reading the workbook and learning about the diaspora through art. They enjoy learning specific art language as well as applying it to their art projects. Both in the class and in the museum, they like the different activities in the museum, especially the fact that they can work with their groups and friends. They also really like the relationship created with our educator. My students enjoyed the diversified activities at the MoAD and the gallery in general. They started to appreciate the African diaspora art and were able to learn about figurative and abstract art. They definitely had a positive experience as they gradually built their stamina, and that was reflected in their heightened self-esteem. Woo, that's awesome. I enjoyed it because, and here's a student, I enjoyed it because it is a lot of fun trying stuff new, expressing our feelings and emotions. And here's a wonderful photo of students showing off their artwork with those heightened self-esteem faces. Love it. And lastly, I like it because we get to work together sometimes and show what we have done and then hang it on the wall, which I can agree as a teaching artist is a very gratifying part of the art making process. And that about sums up my presentation today for how museum education supports the classroom experience. Go ahead and post any questions in the chat box below and we'll answer any of those for you. Hi.
Hi. Sorry. We'll give people a couple of minutes to ask any questions, but I did want to hop on and just say how wonderful it is to hear about this amazing program from you. And I personally, and I hope everyone on the call agrees, that it's particularly valuable to hear it from you as an educator and an artist. That was a really wonderful presentation, and cannot thank you enough for your hard work this spring and your participation in our program.
Thank you, Lacey. It's so wonderful to see a program just actively making students' lives better.
Yes,
Looks like we
really
just received a question actually from Michaela Bailey, if we want to get that going.
Yeah. Oh, we have a question. Have you been able to transition the classroom experience to virtual during this time? Have you heard from Dimitri?
Well, I know that he was mentioning posting things online that are going to be for a broader audience that may or may not include the MoAD participants, and also doing sort of interactive walkthroughs with his docents. And if you do go on the website for the MoAD, there is lesson plans posted. I'm not sure, I haven't been on in a bit, so I'm not sure if they did post any video/virtual lessons as of yet. But I do know that moving towards the virtual experience has been something that was already on some of Dimitri's proposals even before the COVID-19 pandemic. And so this is definitely a direction that I feel museum education is moving towards, and that the pandemic has sort of given that a bit of a push.
I think it was also really important, Aida, that you mentioned Dimitri's comment about the digital divide, because I think a lot of us are experiencing that, those of us who work in museum education, of not everybody has equal access. When we assume that we can move something online, that's the assumption based on a number of different kinds of class and other racial, other factors, you know, and that's part of the reason that we have our strategic action committee, is to talk about those things across CAM, because, you know, museum access is not equal for everyone. And at a time where it's more difficult than it has been before, you know, what does that mean for us? So Aida, you know, I know that's kind of a lot to unpack, but are you seeing anything within your personal sphere of ways to try to address some of that digital divide, or maybe ways that we can try to connect more with people who may not have as much access?
Well, I know right now I can speak to sort of what the museum I'm working at is doing. So creating these little kits that students can come and pick up. I've seen other nonprofits in my area also do this, where students can have access to a lesson via traditional paper and picking up the different supplies that would sort of accompany that lesson, so that whether or not they have the internet or have these devices to view a virtual lesson, that they can still sort of participate and create things and keep their curiosity and creativity going. It's the best we can do right now, yeah. I wish we could give them all iPads and data, that would be great.
Great, and I did just see Michaela's question as well, which was similar, but maybe more geared towards your institution, which you just answered. So I'm sorry if I misinterpreted that original question, but it was great to hear both what MoAD are doing and what your institution are doing. And there is a question from Celeste as well. I am interested in the evaluation by public profit. Do you have any other details about it?
So what I have right now is public profit. They are a agency dedicated to this sort of work. So coming in as a third party to evaluate programs. What I was really excited to learn about their process is they had focus groups with the students, which I thought was really lovely. We're always thinking about how to student-center different activities and programs. And I felt like that sort of hit it on the head with like, well, I've seen students do surveys, but I feel like it doesn't always reach their capacity to express their experience in the different programs. So to have this focus group where the educators weren't present, so that they sort of felt free to express how they felt throughout the program was really awesome to see. I'm not sure if I completely answered that. I'm gonna show back up the for public profit, the public profits chart as well. Did I answer that, Lacey?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Celeste says thank you. Yeah. And there is a question from Rosalie. You just said, I wish we could give them all iPads. What else would you wish for if money wasn't an issue?
That's such a great question. So I wish I could give them all iPads. I wish I can give them, you know, the true art supplies, data, as I mentioned, so that we can go online with each other. And I'm seeing with the pandemic a lot of like humanitarian efforts going about. The little free libraries, little free food pantries, because once a student can address, you know, all those needs, they can really start learning and start working on their self and their identity. Until we solve world hunger, you know, no one's really gonna value these different things when they're just trying to put food on their table. So it's hard to tell a working class parent that the arts are important when they're busy working their labor jobs trying to feed their kids, and they're gonna, of course, pass that down to their students, that their students are gonna need to create some kind of living wage in their life, and what is that gonna be? So I feel like programs like this and programs that I've participated in the arts have always showed me these different adults who can work in the arts and can live and even raise their students to be sort of more creative centered or have more of a freedom in the careers that they choose in the future. So I guess that would be something I would give to my students, is give their parents security, right? If these people can retire and be able to see the system working for them, that way they can have more faith in the arts and in museums and in these fields that are kind of considered more entertainment when it comes down to the nitty-gritty.
Aida, thank you for making that point, because I think that says so much about, you know, it's so hard for us as as our institutions and our desires as educators, but with so little funding, you know, it's hard for us to you know, make change on those contextual realities that affect the students' abilities to participate in what we do, you know. And under the pandemic, right, would you agree that that's made that more difficult in some ways because we're not having those face-to-face interactions?
Yes, 100%.
Great. Thank you so much for those wonderful questions and your answers. I see some great presentations and thank yous and compliments in the chat. So I know we all echo that, and we learned a lot from you today, Aida. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for everyone who joined. I appreciate it.
And I also, in the chat, posted the link where everyone can read Aida's full case study article. It's at calmuseums.org/case studies. So pretty simple. I posted in the chat. Encourage you all to go take a read for more content.
Awesome. Thank you, Lacey.
Great. Thank you. That's a wrap. Take care, everyone.